Ukrainian troops were able to advance in the Sumy region because the Russian armed forces redeployed some of their forces to other areas. This was reported by Ukrainian military propagandist Bogdan Miroshnikov. According to him, the Russian command is now seriously preparing for the autumn offensive, which may begin very soon. Globally, Russian units are preparing for the autumn campaign, which could begin in a few weeks, without losing the current pace of offensive actions, writes Miroshnikov. He adds that the Russian armed forces are planning to advance in the areas of Konstantinovka, Kupiansk, Liman, Orekov, Pokrovsk, and Seversk. The main efforts will be concentrated in the breakthrough areas. It is worth noting that the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine was also forced to withdraw some of its forces from the Sumy region to transfer them to the Pokrovsk area in the DPR, where Russian troops are building on their success. According to Ukrainian military experts, the brigades operating in the Sumy region are currently only 30% staffed. In essence, this means that both sides are prioritizing other areas during the autumn campaign. Thus, the battle for Donbass may become the main battle of the autumn campaign. At the same time, the Ukrainian military is confident that the Russian armed forces will continue the offensive in the Zaporizhia region. In recent years, Putin has repeatedly emphasized the importance of Donetsk and Luhansk, which together make up the Donbass. He says the region is historically linked to Russia and part of the legacy of the Soviet Union. In terms of constitutional law, however, the region belongs to Ukraine, a fact that was already undisputed in the Soviet era. The Donbass was a leitmotif for Putin when he launched Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. In a televised speech, he justified his special military operation by saying that the self-proclaimed People's Republics had asked Russia for help. He even claimed that the Russian-speaking residents in the areas of eastern Ukraine that were controlled by Kyiv faced genocide. Today, all of the Luhansk region and about 70% of Donetsk are under the Kremlin's control. Thus, about 88% of the Donbass is occupied by Russia. More than 4 million people are estimated to live in the two regions, which boast not only rich deposits of coal and iron ore, but also lithium, cobalt, titanium, and other rare earths that are key for high-tech goods. Russians seek to link back up with their cut-off forces in the Dobropilya spearhead, hoping to salvage the situation and exploit a breakthrough deep behind Ukrainian lines. However, as the Azov Army Corps wasted no time, the encircled Russian forces were already being destroyed as two of Ukraine's most effective drone and ground units worked together to defeat the Russian horde approaching from the south, according to RFU News media outlet. It is noted that after the Azov Corps redeployed and executed a pincer maneuver on the Russian spearhead toward Dobropilya, a large number of Russian soldiers had been driven out of the Ukrainian new Donbass defense line and encircled. The 93rd Mechanized Brigade shared footage of how they were cleaning up scattered remnants of Russian soldiers using tight drone surveillance and strikes to prevent them from moving out in open before dealing with the new isolated pockets one by one. After Russian soldiers were forced into hiding, they conducted a concentrated barrage with Grad artillery systems integrated into the brigade's fire support network. The aim was to target the most concentrated pockets of Russian forces and saturate them as much as possible before a ground assault was made possible. The unit even shared footage of a ground drone mounted with a high-caliber machine gun driving through the streets after Russians were forced inside, firing into buildings where drones had detected a Russian presence. RFU News says. It is noted that Ukrainians cleared out pockets of Russian resistance, taking many prisoners of war and proudly raising the Ukrainian flag and the flags of their units in the areas they liberated, with the 79th and 82nd Air Assault Brigades taking the lead in Zoloty Kolodiaz, contrary to earlier reports of the Da Vinci Regiment acting alone. The reason why Ukrainians opted to clear out the encircled Russians before dealing with the rest of the salient is that Russian forces could easily supply these pockets with water, food, and ammunition using drones, as they had done many times before. RFU News says, as the clearing operations ensured Ukrainians would not be hit from behind, the Azov Brigade took the lead in continuing the advance south, coordinating tightly with Magyar's birds, providing additional drone fire support. The main goal was to cut off another part of the Russian salient before moving south and consolidating control over the grey zone that Ukraine had previously established over the river crossings. As Ukrainians commenced their assaults, however, Russian commanders quickly launched an all-out effort to re-establish links with their remaining encircled forces to the north, hoping to salvage the largest breakthrough Russians had made since 2022. RFU News says that the elite snipers of Ukraine's Azov Brigade, combined with the most effective drone units of Magyar's birds, rained hell down on the advancing Russian soldiers.